Hello everyone, good afternoon. We'll just be starting in a minute. Hello friends. A very good afternoon to all of you joining us from India, and a very good morning to all those of you who are joining us from overseas. A very warm welcome, and I hope you and your loved ones are all safe. Thank you for staying home and helping in flattening out the curve of this pandemic. My sincere gratitude and thanks goes out to all of you who have joined us today, and especially those of you who've been joining us at each of our webinars. It's very encouraging to have so many of you join us. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, I'm Vinel and I lead marketing and communications at Renewsys. Renewsys is the first integrated manufacturer of solar PV modules and its key components, that is encapsulants, backsheets, and solar PV cells. And this gives us a very unique perspective of how these components interact with each other and helps us to better predict module reliability. This is the fifth webinar that we are conducting, and this series was started with the intention of making the most of this time that we have. And your support and enthusiasm is keeping us going. So please do share your feedback with us, and especially the topics that you would like us to cover going forward. So I've posted that link already through the Q&A section. That's where you can access it and leave us some feedback. And we do also have a blog that covers the topics that we cover in these webinars in a slightly more simplified fashion. They're a quick read. Do drop by our website to take a look. Our website is www.renewsysworld, renewsysworld.com. And now, without further ado, I'll hand over to Sandeep. Sandeep is going to be leading today's webinar, and he is instrumental in leading the charge on module reliability and performance at Renewsys. He will be discussing shading with us today. Good afternoon, Sandeep.
Good afternoon. Thanks, Vinay. Thanks a lot. Good afternoon, everyone, and good morning to few people who are from overseas. Hope everyone is safe and are staying home. Thanks a lot for joining this webinar. Now, jumping into the topic of discussion. Basically, we are going to cover the impact of shading. Okay, shading has two impacts. One is in terms of the energy generation, what we are going to get. The other is from the solar module reliability point of view, or from the safety point of view, the physical damage to the module. Renewsys is the first integrated module manufacturer who has components like EVA backsheet. They are being manufactured in our Bangalore facility. The solar cells and solar modules are manufactured in Hyderabad facility. Vinal has anyway covered, so I'm going to skip this part of the slide. Coming to the topic of discussion, that is shade, what I thought was, I don't know how many of you are from electrical background and all those stuff. So I thought of simply briefing out the basics of photovoltaic cells, then the connections of a series connections and parallel connections, and then how a module does look like and why we do those connections. From then onward, we can pick it up going to the effect of shading, so that it would be very easy for us to understand. So these are very simple slides. I would like to finish it in around 30 to 40 minutes and keep most of the time for your question and answer session. Coming to the basic part, actually, a solar cell is a current generator, okay, which is like which is a PN junction diode, which is very large in size. It is similar to a photodiode. Okay, the basic components of a solar cell, we have a base semiconductor material, uh, which is already doped with a p-type material, and then we dope n-type material, and which would result in a formation of a p-n junction. Then we have metal contacts on the top and the bottom surface to collect the respective charge carriers. Okay, that's what we are trying to show it in here, a slightly graphical manner. Uh, this is the basic cross section or the type contents of a solar cell, and then we have an n-type silicon and a p-type silicon. This is the junction which is formed, which will block the carriers to be transferred from one side to other side in a normal condition. Once the sunlight strikes the semiconductor material or the solar cell, which is the most active part in a solar cell, PV system or a solar module, the only active part, the electrons and holes are generated and are transferred to the respective sites because of the field which is at the junction. Once the carriers are being transferred, they are given to the load, converted into AC and given to the load which is shown in the last. Now, going into the operating principle, basically, the basic operating principle of a photovoltaic device is has got three stages basically. First, absorption of the photons, absorption of light. Light has particles called as photons. Each photon, depending upon its wavelength, has its energy. If the energy is sufficient to excite or an electron, making it free from its bonding structure, then it is called as generation. First process is absorption, second process is generation. The generated carriers are being moved to the respective sites and are being collected, and the collected carriers are going to the load. That is what we can see in the graphical. And one more thing, what we have to note down here is the amount of current a solar cell can generate is directly proportional to the area of the solar cell at a given intensity. The larger the size, the higher the current of that particular solar cell would be. The lower the size, the lower the current of that particular solar cell would be. Some basics of series and parallel connections. How in what is for easier convention, we have given an analogy of a few water buckets connected in series and few water buckets connected in parallel. In parallel, what would happen? In series, what would happen? Okay, first one is a series connection. If you see, okay, cell 1 is connected in series to cell 2. Basically, series connection is connecting a p-type to the n-type of the second cell, p-type of first cell to the n-type of the second cell, and so on. So what actually happens is, if you see on the bottom, we have a graphical representation where we have two water tanks. Okay, first water tank is at a height of, means the water in the first water tank is at a height of 12 feet, and the second water tank again, which is again elevated by a height of 12 feet. So the net pressure for the water to come out of these tanks would be 24. This is basically the voltages, or this is how in a series connection voltage adds up. Then going to the parallel connections, in parallel connections, it is the voltage which would remain same, and it is the current which is getting added up. It would be easy for us, it would be easy for us to look into the bottom picture where we have graphics. We have two water tanks similar to what we have seen in series connection, but both of them are at a height of 12 feet. The water inside those tanks is at 12 feet, and two pipes individually are coming and joining. So the net amount of water which is flowing through the pipe near that roller is from both the tanks. So the amount of water is double here. Flow of water can be considered as flow of current. That is how, if you see in first case, series case, flow of water is exactly the same in both the cases, whereas the pressure has built up because of the difference in the heights. And coming to the next case, two individual tanks are supplying water to both the pipes. That's why the current is getting added up. These are the basics, simple basics of series and parallel connections which would be required for us. Now, coming to the basic construction of a PV solar module, we have seen that the current of a solar cell, normal solar cell of a typical 156 or 157 mm size is already 8 amps, which 8 to 10 amps, which is quite high. So now we have to look for a methodology of connecting the solar cells to form a solar module by which we could increase the voltage at the same time power. So the best option would be to connect the solar cells in series. So by connecting the solar cells in series, we have seen earlier the voltage gets added up, and the current is going to remain constant across these cells, provided all cells are having the same current. Then considering depending upon application, basically the number of cells we have to connect in series would be decided. Typically, a silicon solar cell, depending upon its band gap and so, will have roughly a of maximum power point voltage of roughly around 0.5 volts and open circuit voltage of roughly around 0.6, 0.63 kind of stuff. Then suppose if you wanted to charge a battery of roughly 12 volts, we would require around 36 cells to be connected in series, where the VMP would be around 18. And considering the temperatures at which we operate the solar cells, the operating voltage would come down to 15 volts, and that is the voltage which would be required for charging a battery. And coming to a normal utility scale or rooftop power plants, where grid connected power plants, considering the energy concentration we require, our density we require, and the place availability, ease of operation, installations, and all the stuff, the best possible option would be a 72 cell module. Okay, at this point of time. So the voltage here would be twice, roughly, the VOC would be around 45, 46 volts. The VMP would be around 37, 36, 38 volts. And then the current would remain same at 8 to 10 amps. This is a basic construction of a solar photovoltaic model. That is the reason globally we see panels having series connections. How coming to the topic of discussion, do solar panels work very well under shading? No, we have to be very careful because shade has a negative impact. As we know, solar panels require light to fall onto it. As we have seen earlier, they have to generate the carriers. Carriers need to be collected and then given to the load. But whereas if we have the shade, the amount of light which is falling onto the surface of the solar module comes down. But one point to note here is the amount of energy lost because of the shade is not directly proportional to the shaded area. It is much more greater. Why it is greater? How is it greater? We'll see in the next coming slides. Apart from this, apart from the negative impact on energy production, it has got one more severe effect, which falls under the criteria of hotspots. If not addressed properly, the temperatures can go beyond 150 degrees, much beyond 150 degrees, beyond 200, sometimes at 300. Generally, solar modules which are made using polymer materials like EVA and backsheet, these materials have a maximum temperature sustainance of around 150 degrees to 180 degrees. At these high temperatures beyond 200 till 300, the EVA and the backsheet get damaged. There is a chance that arcing can happen. In India, we generally have RCC roofs. Still, safety issue is there, but in cold countries, we generally have households made of wood. Basically, because of the insulation, proper insulation from the heat water, cold water we get using it. So there is a chance that this might create a fire. So we have to be very careful in case of hotspots. So we have to notice the effects of hotspots upfront itself and try to negate it as early as possible. If we don't act in time, the damage what this hotspot going to create to the particular solar module is very high. Solar panel or a solar module is very high. So we have to detect it early and try to negate it as early as possible. And understanding the effects of shade on PV output, basically, because we have seen there are two aspects. One is in terms of the power generation, what we are going to get from the solar panels. Second is the safety point of the reliability point of view. First, we would cover the shade on effect of shade on the output point of view. Let us consider we have a string of panels which are connected in series. Roughly, if you take a 1000 volt system, you would have roughly around 19-20 panels connected in series. And if you go to a 1500 volt system, you would have roughly around 29 to 30, 31, 32 panels connected in series. Okay. In order to understand this in a simpler way, let us again look into a water pipe analogy. Okay. So the amount of current which is going through the string of panels, solar panels, is similar to the amount of water going in a pipe which is very long. Okay, this pipe is also like the same length as that of a string of a solar panel. Hello, Vinay, am I audible?
Yes, Sandeep, we can hear you.
Okay, thanks. Okay, then what will happen to the power generation the moment we have shade? We'll see in the next slide. Okay, if you see once one part of the panel, particularly one panel in a string of 20 or 30 panels has been shaded, we can assume that once it is shaded, it is not producing any current because there is no light falling onto the module, and there is no generation happening, and there is no collection happening. So this could be similar to a pipe which is clogged by some mud or something in a pipe. So if it is clogged in particular portion, which we can see over here, the amount of water going from one side to the other side is 0. So that is how the amount of current which is flowing in the entire string is 0. So the amount of net power lost is not equal to that particular module, whereas it is the complete string which is lost. So if you have a panel which is shaded, a single panel which is shaded, uh, then the amount of power you are going to lose would be that of a complete string, which is either 20 panels or 30 panels, depending upon the system voltages what we have. In the bottom, there is small graphics. You can see if we have a moving shade, how does it happen? How does the current flow and all those stuff, which we'll discuss detail in other slides. Now, under the shading, the effect at the string level, we can see the same thing, which is explained in a detailed way. Initially, if you see, right, there is no shade. Okay, there is no shade. Everything is operating normally. Current is flowing normally. No problem. The moment you partially shade, there is a dip in the current which is going. The current has decreased. If the shade has further increased, modules have a advantage in the junction boxes, which is called as a bypass diode. Those will switch on and allowing the bypassing only the particular module which is under shade. The effects of this we will understand in the next coming slides. This is a simple analogy which is completely graphic, which you can understand. When there is no shade, solar panels are good, operating at 100% individually for the given conditions. Okay, the moment you have shade, what actually happens is you can see. Suppose if you have a bird droppings or a shade from a tree, a particular module is able to generate 50%, and since all the panels are connected in series, the complete generation would come down to 50% across that particular tree. Okay, even in the case of a shade from a tree, also the same thing is going to happen. Before going into the effect on hotspot, I would like to show a few images of the hotspots so that everyone can understand the severity of hotspots due to shading. While we explain, we feel that okay, it is fine, but if you look into the images and understand its the severity or its impact and its safety repercussions, then we'll have more understanding why it is very much important for us to take it in terms of safety. These are few of the images. If you see, you have seen here, you have seen a module. We can see a module over here where it is completely burnt. You can see a module here which is completely burnt. This is the place where you can see the backsheet is completely melted and bubbled out. You can see the solar cells which are burning and all this stuff. So we have to be very careful with the effect of hotspots due to shade. More than the performance point of view, it is from the safety point of view, you have to be more attentive in addressing the issues. Okay. Hotspots due to shade. How does it occur? Okay, we have roughly around 72 modules, 72 cells which are connected in series in a particular panel. Okay, all of them are connected in series, which you have seen. Okay, in series connections, what we have seen is the voltage gets added up and the current remains same, or current is at the lowest what it can allow. What actually happens is the moment you shade a particular cell, the current from that particular cell is 0. Now, if you practically look into it, suppose if this, okay, suppose if you look into this cell, the negative side of the cell is connected to the positive side, and the negative side of this is connected to the positive side of the next cell. So positive is connected to the shaded cell. The positive is connected to the negative, and the negative is connected to the positive. As we have seen in the initial stages, a solar cell is a large diode. Okay, for a diode to conduct, we need to connect them in forward. Unless until it is a Zener diode, we have to connect them in the forward, positive to positive and negative to negative. But whereas in this case, when it is not acting as a current generator, we have connected in the reverse direction. So a solar cell which is connected in reverse direction will not allow current to pass through unless until it reaches a voltage called as breakdown voltage. The moment the voltage on that particular cell in reverse direction is equal to the reverse breakdown voltage, the amount of current which flows suddenly from there onwards, voltage will not increase. It is only current which is going to increase in a straight line. So the amount of current which flows through the shaded cell in reverse bias is so high that the temperatures will go beyond 200 degrees centigrade. Typically, if you look into it, right, all the solar cells typically will have reverse breakdown voltage of around minus 18 volts. That is why I have written minus is because you have connected it positive to negative, negative to positive. One important thing to notice here is in a 72 cell panel, if you remove one cell, there are 71 cells. Each cell roughly if you take around each cell having a voltage of around say 0.5 volts. Okay, it would be roughly around 35.5 volts, which is falling onto a cell which is completely shaded, which is no more a solar cell, whereas it is a diode. So 35.5 volts, which is much higher than the breakdown voltage of a solar cell, which is around 18 volts. So this will surely make your solar cell operate in reverse bias and attain the reverse bias breakdown voltages, and the heat, the amount of heat it dissipates would be very high, much beyond 200 degrees centigrade, and creating a hotspot, creating a severe hotspot to be precise, and burning your backsheets and EVS. The duration it might take, if the situation is like this, would be hardly around 10 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes, not on a proper sunny day, and not beyond that. Hotspots due to shade, some more in a graphical representation. When the solar cells are connected in series and are normal, this is how the IV curve looks like. This is the complete IV curve of this module, and it is basically addition of it is basically addition of IV curves of the individual solar cells in the module. Suppose if the voltage of the first cell is every cell is 0.5, then the net voltage at the end would be 1.5 volts. Now, in this case, let us consider we have shaded one cell. Okay, we have shaded the cell, but we did not completely shade it, for example. So in this case, what actually happens is this cell will produce 8 amps, or the maximum current it can produce at 0.5 volts. Still, it is okay. The next cell, which is shaded, can allow only whatever it can have depending upon the amount of shade. So it is allowing I divided by the amount of shaded area. So that is the amount of current it can allow. That is the reason, if you see, the current after the first cell has dropped down, and this, since the next cell is connected in series to this is the net amount of current this cell has to allow. So this is how it is flowing. But what actually is happening, suppose if you take a 300 watt peak panel, just for an assumption sake, okay, one cell is shaded, because of which the complete power, the power from the entire module is 0. What actually is happening to the power generated by the remaining 71 cells which are acting as a current generator? So let us assume each cell is producing say around 5 watts. One cell is gone, so there is a power that module should generate which is equal to 295 watts. Where is that power going? Energy generated going. That entire 295 watt peak of energy which is generated because of the active cells or unshaded cells falls onto the cell which is shaded. That is how the amount of energy is transferred. That is how the temperature increases in the cell, particularly which is shaded. Okay. How bypass diode works, we'll see. In a typical constructions, how bypass diodes are, the solution is a bypass diode for avoiding hotspots. Typically, bypass diodes are connected depending upon the configuration. Suppose if you take a 72 cell module, each bypass diode has around 24 cells connected across it. And if you take a 60 cell module, then 20 modules are connected across it. And depending, like if you go to 36 module, then there are different configurations. Some people use 9 into 4 to get 36 cells. Some people use 6 into 6 to get 34 cells. 36 cells. So in a normal condition, bypass diodes are connected parallelly to the string. That is, they are connected parallel to 24 cells in a reverse direction. That is, the positive is connected to the negative side and negative is connected to the positive side. Okay, when a solar modules are operating in a normal condition, the resistance through the solar cells is lower than the bypass diode. So bypass diode is not switched on. Since it is connected in reverse bias, everything is going good. The moment you shade a particular solar cell in a string, what actually happens is the amount of current a solar cell can generate comes down. Okay, so this will, since everything is connected in series and the lowest amount of current is what it can allow, what it will make is it will push the other solar cells in the string to operate at the lower current ranges. So in order to operate at the lower current ranges on the IV curve, on the IV curve, we can take the analogy from this. On the IV curve, what actually happens is the cells which are operating, which are non-shaded, try to operate at lower currents. That is by moving towards the higher voltage ranges. So there is an increase in the voltage over here. This increase in the voltage will create an imbalance in the place where it is connected. So if this shell is shaded, okay, and if there is an imbalance in the voltage which is created because of the operating point shift in the cells which are unshaded, this unshaded portion will create a negative potential over here because this cell has to move towards that side and this cell has to move towards a lower currents and higher voltage. Because of this, there is a forward bias applied across this bypass diode and this starts conducting. The moment this starts conducting, the current from the active strings goes directly through the bypass diode and finally from to the string from the module through the junction box. But one thing what we have to see here is by using bypass diodes, the amount of power we are going to lose has reduced considerably. How it is, because in this case we are only losing a string, which is in a case of a 72 cell module, it would be roughly around 24 cells. Whereas if we don't have bypass diodes, we have seen the entire string is gone. So in this case, what actually happens, it is only the 24 cells in a 72 cell module case. That is what we have lost, or the number of cells which are connected across the bypass diode. That is what we are going to lose. One more thing is that since this diode is operating and it is a low resistance path, the string which is having the shaded cell is similar to an open circuit condition, thereby which there is no current which is trying to flow through. So the cell which is shaded does not have any impact in increasing in the temperature. Also, even if it is closed loop also, since we have max is 24 cells, so if you consider 23 cells into 0.5 volts, the voltage would be roughly around 12.5 13 volts, which is much less than the breakdown voltage of the particular solar cell which is shaded. There are a few, there are a few types of diodes, like PN junctions, basically a silicon diode, a Schottky barrier diode, basically semiconductor diode and a Schottky barrier diode. Schottky barrier diodes are metal semiconductor diodes. That is, they have very low forward voltage breakdown, very high reverse breakdown voltage, and they have very high current carrying capabilities. So there might be few still. There are devices which are better than the Schottky barrier diodes, but they are more complicated and more expensive to be put into a solar module. Those are the devices which are being generally used. Those are the kind of devices which are generally used in DC optimizers or microinverters kind of stuff. Okay, but the device, the diode, the bypass diode, whatever we choose, irrespective of the type of application, should be having very low forward voltage breakdowns and very high current carrying capabilities, because nowadays as the cell sizes are increasing, the current from each particular cell which we have seen, the current is directly proportional to the area of the cell, might go beyond 10 amps also. That is the particular reason it should have very high current carrying capabilities, at the same time very low forward bias breakdown voltages. Using Schottky barrier diodes, typically these are metal semiconductors, typically have voltage breakdown of about 0.14 to 0.15 volts. Okay, so in order for the bypass diode to be active, the potential difference created between one string and the other string should be a minimum 0.14, 0.2 volts. On a normal conditions, if you consider STC conditions, standard test conditions like 1000 watt per meter square and all this stuff, these bypass diodes get switched on roughly around 20% to 25%. Below that, 20 to 25% of shade at STC conditions. Below that, the potential difference created between the strings is not enough for that Schottky diode to be switched on, the bypass diode to be switched on. Now coming to the field conditions, it might vary. It might not stick at around 20-25% of the shade. Particularly it depends upon the intensity at that particular site on that particular instance of time. So it might vary up to around 40 to 50%. Okay, for a 72 module. So we have to be very careful, particularly for the shades which are below that, because even at 40 to 50% also, there is a major chance the net amount of power to be dissipated is very high. So we have to be careful in those regions. So typically we look into the types of shades. This is just a general discussion or general classification of shades. Shades are generally classified into soft shades and hard shades. Soft shades are the ones which are caused by a distant object. The light from the sun falls onto the subject which is at a distance and which is not in direct contact or very near to the photovoltaic module. Whereas hard shades are the shades, you can say a leaf on the solar module or a bird dropping on a solar module, which is directly touching the glass of a solar module and will not allow any light to pass through. Soft shades can be a tree at a distance or a light pole at a distance. These are the things. One more thing, what you have to notice is how hard shades typically, since they are sticking onto the glass, right? It won't have any effect due to the motion of the sun from east to west, but or from north to south with respect to seasons. But when you take a tree or a light pole or a current pole, they generally tend to move because they are at a distance. The direction of the shade will directly depend upon the angle at which the sun is there with respect to the particular season. So this will, what it will make is, it will constantly make the diode which is there inside the junction box on a solar panel to switch on and switch off frequently. Let us typically consider, like if you have a hard shade which is directly on the module, the diode is switched on for the complete day. But whereas if you take a shade which is moving, in the mornings diode is switched on, when sun is overhead diode is switched off, and then again in the evenings because of the shade it is again switched on. So in a day typically switching on happens multiple times compared to a hard shade. So this constant switching on switching off of the diode will increase the will reduce the life cycles of operation of these diodes. Once this diode goes bad, there is no safety there to protect this module. So it is very much necessary. We need to install solar modules in shade-free regions. Some of the this is a typical graphics and all those stuff, how shade is there. And if you see some of the tools which can be used for identifying the shade and all those stuff, some of them are the software based by giving the coordinates, like on the ones which are there in this. By giving the coordinates we can do it, and some of them have to be done while we are doing the site analysis physically. Okay, but it is very much necessary while designing the plant. We should not only consider on the day what we have visited the site, we have to consider the conditions of the site across all seasons, because sun tends to move from north to south, south to north with respect to the seasons, and east to west from on a normal daily operation. So it is very much necessary. We have to take care of all these situations. Coming to the end of this presentation, in summary, what we have learned: shading results in lower power generations, it will cause hotspots. So it is very much necessary. It has to be installed in shade-free region, and any module damaged due to hotspots created by shade will not be covered in warranty. Effect of shade across all seasons to be very much considered while designing the plant. In case of shade, like a tree is not there, it can grow. So if it creates a shade, it is very much necessary to understand why it has, understand the impact of it and try to trim it as much as possible so that there is no shade. The effect of shade can be seen directly in terms of power generations, what we have, which we have already learned. And one more thing which generally people might not follow is using proper handling handling appliances like ESD protectors while installing the panels. Because when we wanted to install the panels, okay, mechanical installation it is fine, but the moment we wanted to connect the panels in series or parallel to the inverters through the AJBs or DCDBs and ACDBs and all those stuff, we directly tend to touch the cables, or if there is a need to replace the cable and all those stuff or the connector, we generally try to touch it with the bare hands. When we are touching, particularly in dry climates, what we feel is there is a static which is there in our body because of the atmosphere and clothes we wear. That is a spark what we get if we try to touch some metal part when we try to open a door or a car door kind of stuff. So that discharge, whatever the static charge which is inbuilt in you, will damage these diodes. So we have to be very careful in protecting those diodes, particularly while installation, because generally module manufacturers do take care while installing their junction boxes using ESD protectors. But it is advantageous and it is suggested for installers also to use these ESD protectors, particularly while they are connecting the strings to the inverters. And at the same time, one more protection which I have not written here, we have to be taken care is the lightning arresters. Because lightning arrestor reverse current protection devices, maybe a blocking diode kind of stuff. Because the moment you have reverse current either due to the lightning or because of the surge somewhere in the system, they might damage these diodes. Once the diodes are damaged, it has no protection towards the hotspots. So it is very much necessary. Necessary precautions have to be taken with respect to all these conditions. That's it from my side. Thanks a lot. Any questions? I'm ready to take it.
Thanks, Sandeep. Thank you. I think the first question that we can start with is from Mr. Shatrughan, who's asking about this analysis in terms of half-cut modules, half-cut cell modules.
Mm-hmm. Okay, half-cut modules. Suppose if you take them, generally we install modules in portrait fashion, right? So if we have shade at the bottom part, covering all the 6 cells, last 6 cells in a module, the net power of this module is 0, because every cell is shaded, no current can flow through. But if you take a half-cut cell, in that half-cut cell, basically it is equivalent to 2 panels which are connected in parallel. That is the bottommost panel and the top panel. Both of them are connected in parallel at the center. Okay, if the bottom panel is not performing, okay, fine, the net amount of current is 0 for that panel, but the top panel is still operating. So the net amount of power you are going to get in that panel would be slightly around 50% compared to 0 from a normal convention.
Thanks, Sandeep. The next question, how many days later will a hotspot be created if there is a bird dropping or something on the module?
Okay, generally bird droppings, irrespective of bird dropping or the leaf or so, it is the amount of shade what you are doing. Okay, as I already told you, we have bypass diodes in the module which are Schottky diodes. Okay, for that Schottky diode to operate, we need a shade roughly around 50%. The moment bypass diode operates, yes, it is fine. But if we don't have a bypass diode operating, if we don't have the shade which is like, if you have a shade which is below 50%, the bypass diode will not switch on, and the amount of damage it creates, if it is like, say, if we are near to the 50% range, like suppose you are around 40%, you hardly will have a time of around 1-2 days depending upon the intensity. Like suppose if you take summer in India at this point of time, then you will have roughly around 1 day kind of stuff. But the lower the shade, yes, you have some more time.
Thanks, Sandeep. The next question we have is from Rajshri, and she's asking if it is possible to replace cells in a module, specifically a single cell or a couple of cells, if they are the ones that are found faulty in a panel.
No, it is not possible. It is not possible. It is not at all possible.
Okay, thanks. The next question we have is from Avi. He asks if he connects 10 panels of 315 watts as a string, what happens if one panel is completely under shade?
A panel, there are two conditions which you have to see. Generally, normally, all the panels have junction boxes with bypass diodes. If you have connected every 10 panels in series, and if you have a module which is completely shaded, then the output of that particular string with bypass diodes is going to drop by one panel. In case if you don't have those bypass diodes, or if the bypass diodes are damaged, the net amount of power you are going to lose is equal to the 10 panels.
Okay, thanks. Next question is from Mukesh Katare. He's asking, does the effect of the electrical tower which has a crisscross design, the effect of that shadow, will it be similar to the solid shadow?
Manal, if you, sorry, your voice broken. Can you repeat it?
Yes, I'll just repeat that, Sandeep. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, so Mukesh Katare has a question.
Yes.
He's asking about electrical towers. We see a lot of those tall structures which have a crisscross design with transmission cable.
Yes.
So he's saying, what impact will that shadow have versus a solid shadow?
Moving shades are more problematic, as I already explained in them, because a shade which is constant on a particular module will make the diode operate only once a day. But if you have a shade which is of whatever we have seen, because of these electrical poles or something which tend to move with the movement of the sun, will make diodes operate more than the number of times. Like in a day, it might make the diode operate twice, which is twice the time in terms of the life cycle. So this has a major chance that it would damage the module, and it might damage the bypass diode permanently. Once the bypass diode is damaged permanently, there is no protection of from hotspots. So the net impact for these things might be higher compared to a solid shade. Solid shade, in the sense, a shade which is not moving, is what I understood.
Okay. Thanks. So what you're essentially saying is that it doesn't matter whether the structure has slits in it or not, but the sunlight moving through the day is the thing that will cause the problem, as opposed to something that is not.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thanks. Push Prime Mishra is asking us about ESD protectors. If you can just explain.
Yeah. Basically, see, in winter seasons particularly, when the climate is dry, when we try to, there is a static charge which is developed in our cells, right? When we try to touch a car door, or when we try to touch a door which is having a metal, there is a sudden spark. Or even if you try to touch some of our colleagues also, while we are shaking hands also, we can see that spark coming in between both of us. So that is the charge would discharge when you are trying to install the modules also, when you are trying to touch the cables. Okay, that the amount of discharge which would transfer ultimately to the bypass diodes, and there is a chance it would damage it. Okay, ESD protectors are the devices which would be connected to your wrist, or sometimes there are like if you go to the semiconductor industry, they wear a gown called as bunny suit, which is already having those ESD protector lines which are going through and are connected to the ground. So whatever that static charge you are developing in your body is discharged through that to the ground, so that it will not transfer through the cable to the bypass diode. so that no damage would happen to the bypass diode, and they're safe.
Thanks, Sandeep. So we have two questions about bypass diodes now from Shivam and Keenan.
Yes.
One, is there a possibility to replace the diode? And what is the estimated life of the bypass diode?
Diodes should survive for the entire duration of the life of a module. But the thing is, there are multiple factors which can affect. First, I'll answer whether they are replaceable or not. It depends upon the type of the junction box we have. Okay, if a junction box is potted type, no, it cannot be replaced. If a junction box is non-potted type, yes, you can replace. But in that also, you have to see whether that the diode what you have inside the junction box is solder type or a clamp type. If it is a clamp type, yes, we can do it immediately on the field itself. If it is a soldering type, then we have to be careful. That's it. Then second thing, coming to the lifetime. Generally, diodes have a very good lifetime, but it is about the way we handle it. It is more important. So when you are considering bypass diodes, we have to be careful while we are purchasing a module. We have to see whether the module manufacturer is taking proper care towards the bypass diode. It is difficult even for a module manufacturer to inspect each and every junction box, and the same applies to junction box manufacturer as well. But are the proper precautions taken? Like are the proper, like when you enter a module manufacturing plant for a visit, if you see, while they're the place where the junction boxes are being installed, are they having ESD protectors or not? Okay, if they have ESD protectors, there is a limited chance that the diodes in the junction box are damaged. And the same applies to during installation as well. If there is a surge which is coming, either due to lightning or something, yes, the diodes might go bad. And second thing, what you have to see, as I told you, is the shade. If you have constant switching on, switching of the diodes, any for that matter, any switch, if you keep on switching on, switching it off, there is a major chance that it might get damaged faster than a normal way of operation. So we cannot precisely say, but diodes are there, bypass diodes are there to survive for the life of a module. But it depends upon the way you are operating it and precautions you are taking at multiple places in its life cycle.
Thanks, Sandeep. So we have a couple of people asking if how do they know if the bypass diode is working or not, if it's damaged or not?
Mean to say whether bypass diode is damaged or not?
Yeah, okay. Like now the module is already installed in the field. It's been a while, and so now at this point, after the modules maybe a year or two ago they've been installed. So now how can people check if the bypass diodes are working or they're not working, they're damaged?
First of all, bypass diodes won't operate in normal operating conditions unless until you have shade. Okay, and I would prefer you install a module in a shade-free region. Second thing, in order to see whether a bypass diode is operating or not, you need to have a thermal imager. When you take the picture of the module using thermal imager, IR imager, basically of the junction box, right? If a particular diode is operating due to shade, you can see a slight increase in the temperature. There would be because diodes are operating and they're dissipating heat in terms of and they're dissipating energy in terms of it, they are hotter. But if the diode has gone bad, okay, then your solar cells would be at very high temperature, which can be seen on the IR imager. If you take the image of the solar panel, you can clearly see it. So the IR imager is the only option.
Okay. Thanks. A couple of people are asking if you can just go back to that slide where you had listed the software that will help people understand about shadows. Yes. If you can just take us through this quickly.
Should I stop it here? There is no question in this. I mean, is it a question?
No. As in, can you just explain how they can use this once again to map shadows?
See, the top portion is which is towards the right hand side are the software versions. Basically, they take based on the geometrical locations, like latitudes and longitudes. Okay, the one which is there on the right side, on the left side, on the bottom side, are the physical ones. basically they are physical devices. You go to the site, you mark each and every point, like you have a pole kind of stuff. How is it varying? What is the length of the pole? What is the length of the shade and all those stuff? Then you can do these calculations. But most of the time, there is no need to go for the ones which are there on the left side and the bottom. It is only the ones which are there on this side. And Google SketchUp would be the one which would be used by most of the people. Personally speaking, I like PV Labs as well. I've seen that. I've not never used PV Labs, but I've seen it. It is very helpful. It is not only for the shades; it is for a multi-purpose applications. But all these software versions are done based on the coordinates and movement of the sun.
Thanks, Sandeep. So we have a question from Nilesh. He says, what happens if the plant, that means your modules are already installed, I'm assuming, has a shadow every day after 2 p.m. for about 200 days of the year? In terms of safety, how safe is that?
It is not safe, to be precise. Actually, we have to be very careful, because as long as bypass diodes are operating, right, it should not be a problem. But if the bypass diodes go bad, then it is a problem. It depends on, because sitting here, I do not know the amount of shade you are getting. But if the bypass diodes go bad, then it is going to create a huge damage. Like, definitely there would be an arc coming up. Arcing going to happen, and it is definitely going to burn your backsheet and EV. There is a chance that even glass can get broken.
Okay, so what do you recommend Nilesh should do next?
The recommendation upfront itself is not to install in shading conditions. Okay, you have to see what kind of shade it is. I do not know, but one of the possibility to do it is changing the series connections to parallel connections, and see other options. Because in parallel connections, even if one module is shaded, right, there is another alternative path where the current can go. Okay, that is one point. And a second point is, in these conditions, what generally I would have done would be to increase the height of the structure.
Increase the height, sorry?
Increase, means what I'm assuming is, I'm assuming it. Okay, it is a rooftop installation. The shade can be from the parapet wall or overhead tank kind of stuff. Okay, in order to decrease the amount of effect of shade, what we have to do is increase the height of the structure. Suppose if I increase the height of the structure beyond the parapet wall, just as an example I'm saying. So there is no shade coming off the parapet wall onto the module, right? This is just an example I'm giving.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. I think we'll also have to, Nilesh can contact us offline through our sales team. And we'll probably take that discussion forward offline as well.
And before calling, actually, it would be helpful for me to answer if I see some few pictures actually.
Okay.
I think he is listening to me, and if at all he wants to contact ourselves with pictures, it is better for him to answer.
Okay. We have another question from Ashutosh Kumar. He says, will there be hotspots if there is cement dust lying on the entire module for a long period of time, maybe more than a month?
It is not a safety point of view, but if you have a uniform dust accumulated across the module, accumulated across the string or the complete plant, your generations are going to come down, but this will not create a hotspot, because hotspot will come into picture when you have a particular cell or a particular module which are operating at a different current level compared to the remaining part of the system. In this case, I assume that the entire the system is operating at a similar current. Okay, lower current because of the dust or dust accumulation on the surface, but this should not create a hotspot.
Okay, thanks. We have another question on bypass diodes. What happens if we increase the number of bypass diodes? Is that at all possible?
See, there is, I mean, since we work in these things, so there is one interesting thing which we have to see actually. Okay, as I told you how bypass diode operates. Bypass diode operates by shifting the operating point of the unshaded cells. Okay, so the net difference in voltage between unshaded cells and the string which is shaded should be greater than the forward bias voltage of the bypass diode. So if you have more number of cells in a string, the bypass diode might get switched on faster compared to a string which is having less number of cells, unless until you have a diode which operates at a very low forward voltages. Okay, so if you reduce the number of cells in a string, right, maybe right now for a 72 cell module you might have said around 40-50% is the shade. It might go, means if you decrease the number of cells, it might go slightly higher, like it might go up to 50-60% is the shade which is required for bypass diode to operate.
Okay.
But there are specific devices, like not bypass diode per se, there are specific devices which are more active, even at a lesser shade amount also they becomes active and bypass. So in those cases, even means practically it is difficult to connect it, but technically speaking, using those you can connect it to one cell each also. Practically it is not possible.
Okay, okay, thanks. Guru Prasad is asking us about shading losses between monofacial and bifacial modules. If you can just explain from the perspective the same shadow, what is the sort of loss it will cause in a standard panel versus a bifacial panel?
See, it is in terms of the percentage of the panel what it has to produce, and it would remain same. Because if you shade the top, generally shade will happen from the top side only, because that is the part where it is generating highest amount of power. Because if you take a bifacial module, the amount of power you are getting from the back side is considerably less. Hardly it would be around 5 to 10%, unless and means on a normal installations, which is compared to the generation on the front side. So the moment you shade the front side, right, there will be a huge difference in the current between an unshaded string and a shaded string. So automatically a bypass diode, if at all is there, gets activated, and you are going to lose that particular string. But percentage wise, it will remain same. But the net impact, if you don't have bypass diodes, is higher on the bifacial modules, because the net current of that particular system itself is higher in the higher side.
Okay, thanks. We have a question from Jay Thakkar. He asks if a panel is damaged, so maybe when they're going on their inspection rounds and they find a panel is damaged, how do they figure out whether that damage has been caused because of a shadow or something else?
See, generally in the afternoons it is difficult for you to understand the shade, because generally in afternoons we have sun which is almost overhead. Okay, it might be at an angle with respect to the season. Otherwise, it is almost at the center where is the shade is not properly seen. So, in order to understand the effect of the shade, you have to look into it from early in the morning, say around 7-8 o'clock, kind of stuff till 9 o'clock, and beyond 3 o'clock to 5 o'clock. Those are the times which we can see physically if you want to visit the site and understand the effect of shade. Otherwise, if you know the coordinates and if you know the heights of the objects which are in the surroundings, then it is easy to use any of these softwares and understand are they having any effect.
Okay. Okay. We have another question here. So if there is a crack in the cell or there is a significant damage to the cell and it generates a hotspot, will the bypass diode be able to manage that, or is it going to impact the entire module?
See, there are two things. If you have a crack in a cell, fine, you have a crack in a cell, but the thing what you have to notice is that crack isolated from the complete circuit. Okay, if suppose if you have a crack which is going in the center of the cell, physical crack which is going in the center of the cell, but still it is connected through the interconnecting ribbons, it will not create any effect. But if you have a piece of a cell, say at the corner, which is completely isolated, means it is not connected to the circuit. Okay, the amount of current which is generated from that portion is individual. In that case, yes, depending upon the amount of size of the crack what you have or the amount of mismatch in current it can create, bypass diode can switch on. Okay, But again, in this case also you have to see how long a bypass diode can survive and how long this will be there. But otherwise, the other part of the cell which is isolated will dissipate whatever it is generating in terms of it, but it might not be high enough to damage a particular module. And considering the 5 busbar cells or multi busbar cells we are having, the amount of inactive area or the amount of area isolated due to crack would be less to create such an instance.
Okay, thanks. We have another question from Pranav. He is asking if optimizers help prevent effect of shadows on solar panels, and how many optimizers are to be used in one string if they know that there's a shadow in one panel or
No,
shading of one panel.
See, it is always, I mean, generally optimizers, these optimizers are generally either one module or two module. It won't be helpful if you are doing it per a string. Okay, you have to do it either, the best option is to do it per module, so that each and every individual module will act depending upon the maximum power or the best condition it can operate in to negate this effect. Yes, optimizers do help. Optimizers do help, and they are very good actually in this hotspot conditions, and they'll help module perform better, and also from reliability point of view or generation of hotspot. But ideally, it should be one optimizer per module.
Okay, noted. So Manish is asking us if whether the panels are put in landscape or portrait will make a difference if there is about 30% shadow on the lower edge of the panel.
Okay, what I'm understanding from this, you have installed on the slope. Okay, then what you are trying to say is the lower portion is shaded, right?
About 30%, yes. So
30%
he's
of the
asking
module
if
size?
we change it of the module, yes.
30% of the module size, okay. Suppose if you have installed on a portrait, right? Okay, not even 30% of the module size is required. You just cover the bottom most 6 cells, then the power of the particular module would be 0. Okay, but when you have installed it in a landscape, right? So suppose if you have covered on complete string, okay, the amount of power you are means the bottom. If you cover the bottom of complete cells in the bottommost string, then you are going to lose 1/3 power. If you cover two cell strings, still you are going to lose 1/3 power. But the moment you cover the third string, you are going to lose 2/3 of the power. So if it is coming from the bottom side, yes, landscape will perform better than portrait. If it is coming from bottom, particularly from the bottom side.
Okay. And so we have another question about warranty. If it is established that the damage to the panel has been caused by a shadow, then what about the warranty?
And warranty is not applicable if it is proved that it is because of the shade where the damage of the module has happened, because there is a clear instruction given that modules need to be installed in shade free regions only.
Thanks. We have a question from Purushottam. He asks, which is the best open source or free software from those softwares that you showed us earlier for shadow analysis?
Honestly speaking, even I do not know, because I do not purchase on. We generally do not use these, right? Because we are module manufacturers. I think Google SketchUp is a free version, or they have a free version available. I've never tried whether they are free or not, because whenever we require, we would look into a trial version. And normally, because our day-to-day requirement does not have this requirement, right? Shade analysis and all those stuff. Okay, Google SketchUp might be free.
Okay, thanks. So Harshal has a question. I think we sort of addressed this earlier. But if there's a shadow at a fixed time for a few hours towards the evening every day, and it's not a moving shadow, but it comes every evening,
Okay.
do you think there'll be a hotspot or the panel will fail?
See, as long as the bypass diode is operating, okay, hotspot won't be there. I mean, the temperature won't be high, provided the shade is at least 50% or greater of the cell size. If your shade is below 50% or like below 40%, then it will create a hotspot. That is for sure. Because as long as you're below 50% or like 45% in that range, there is a minimal chance that your bypass diode will get switched on because of the potential difference. So you have to see what is the amount of shade you are having and with respect to cell size. Is it greater than 45% or not? If it is above 45% and if your diode is intact, yes, there is no problem with respect to hotspot. If it is below 40-45%, the shaded percentage of a particular cell, yes, it is going to have a hotspot.
So we have a slightly unrelated question, but so basically what happens is in residential areas where there are a lot of bird droppings, and if the panel has to be cleaned frequently, then will that cleaning have a negative effect on the panel, damage the panel in any way over a long-term period? And how long can we sort of let the dropping be before it should be cleaned?
That's what I'm saying, right? See, hotspot effect is directly proportional to the area. It is not the type of shade what you are taking, whether it is bird dropping or whether it is a leaf or whether it is dust or whether it is due to an object which is there. It is the amount of area which is going to go. So if the shaded region is below, say around 10%, then the impact would be less. Okay. But if the shaded portion is beyond 50%, you have protection from bypass diode. You have to be very careful with shades which are in between these things, like 11% to 49% or 50%. So those are the ones which you have to be careful. And cleaning, yes, does not impact, but be careful while cleaning. You have to do it when the system is off. Okay, it is electrically isolated.
Thanks, Sandeep. I think we have a lot of sort of slightly repetitive questions about clouds and wires and other things that come and go. How to deal with those seasonal shadows?
See, like clouds, you say, right? Clouds are very, very far. I mean, clouds are very far. Okay, they are the softest of the soft shades what we can have, and the impact on a model is negligible because if you have a cloud, right, the amount of area it is going to cover would be a model. It won't be a particular cell what it can cover. Okay, so clouds is okay, fine. Yes, there is going to be a drop, but the drop is there for the entire string, not that particular cell or a particular model. First point. Second point, you said about the cable, right? I assume those are the thinner cables what we see. That cable might not have any issue because the amount of area it is going to shade is very less. Those things will not impact.
And if it's those power transmission cables, then should people avoid choosing sites which have things like that?
I did not understand.
If it's like those big power transmission cables that has like a more pronounced shadow, then we have a question if they should go ahead with that site or not.
No, transmission cables, even if they are big, also the amount of shade it creates, I don't think it would be such high. Okay, because if you have I assume that if you have a thicker cable, right, then it has to be the system voltages are very high. They are the transmission lines which are for the substations and all those stuff. Okay,
Yes.
those are generally being installed using very tall structures actually. Okay,
Yes.
the amount of shade what that is going to create would be very less. So cables per se will not have an issue, but you have to look into the shade which is created by those structures which are being used for installation of these cables. Are they creating shade or not? But per se cable will not have an issue, but you have to look into this part actually.
Okay.
Structures.
Okay. And between mono and multi, is there a difference to how they'll respond in terms of how quickly the hotspot will form and damage to the panel?
No, per se it won't. There won't be much difference. There is slight mono cells might be slightly better off very slightly. Like I've told you, the reverse breakdown voltage of typical silicon solar cell is around minus 18 volts, right? Maybe for a mono solar cell, it might go up to minus 20 volts to minus 21 volts. So that is the band with which you can play, like 2 volts to 3 volts.
Okay, thanks. I'm just quickly. We have some slightly unrelated questions. Like we have a question about what happens if there's a cricket ball that has hit the module. Will that cause long-term damage?
It depends upon how it has hit actually, whether it is a cricket ball or a stone. If it has damaged the glass, then it is gone.
So if the glass is broken, then what should they do? Should they replace the panel?
Obviously, they have to replace because it is a safety concern. Because the glass what we are using is a tempered glass. Okay, it gets shattered the moment it breaks. It is not like a crack has come kind of thing. So if you have those tempered glass which are shattered, there is a major risk because the glass will become into tiny pieces and they can be harmful. I mean, harmful in the sense they can injure a person. So they have to replace that panel.
Okay.
And I suppose if the glass has not broken, okay, you have fit with the cricket ball, the glass has not broken. There is a chance that the cell which is below that is damaged. But if it is a 5-bus or a multi-bus bar cell, more advantages if it is a multi-bus bar. Still, it is not completely, means most part of the cell is still connected to the circuit. It should not have that much impact.
Okay, thanks. We have a very specific question. What is the minimum watt per meter square that creates a hotspot?
Minimum watt per
meter square, yeah. Do you
for
have
this, Vinal, I'm not able to hear you.
what is the minimum watt per meter square that results in a hotspot?
See, it is not about the minimum watt per meter square, it is about the amount of shade and it is the amount of voltage which is coming onto the cell. It is not the amount of current, means amount of intensity or irradiance which is coming onto the module. It is about you have a shade, what percentage of the cell is covered with shade, okay, and at what point the bypass gets switched on. Okay, typically the lower it is, the lower chance that the bypass drive gets switched on. It is not about the intensity, but it is about the amount of shade and it is about the instance at which the bypass drive gets switched on.
Okay, thanks, Sandeep. Thank you. I think we've covered all the questions, and I would like to take this opportunity to thank all our participants as well for joining us. We'll be putting up this webinar on our website. Please do drop by to take a look. And in case you have any questions, please feel free to send them to us. If we were not able to cover them today, we'll try and get back to you over email. Thank you everyone for joining us. Thanks, Sandeep. Bye-bye.